Good evening. I'd like to call to order the work session for the Board of Commissioners for December 5th, 2011. Commissioner White is not here tonight, and Commissioner Cabarrus should be joining us shortly. So thankfully, we do have quorum. Commissioners, you have in front of you the agenda that we have been presented with. Is there anything on the agenda that you want to pull off from consent at this time for next meeting in 2 weeks? If not, may I have a motion that the consent agenda be added to the meeting in 2 weeks? Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Let's see, the first thing then we'll discuss tonight is the old business for the update for Cabarrus County Schools and Kannapolis City Schools for the QZAB projects. And I don't know who wants to go first, or you can come together.
We usually come together.
That's good. Thank you.
We get two for the price of one.
I'll start off. I don't have a lot to report from last time. We're still very much in the design phase. We're concentrating our efforts on the intermediate school roof and HVAC system. We hope to have that design finished and hopefully be ready to bid in the January, February 2012 time range, so a couple more months. As far as the other HVAC projects, the engineer is working right now to try to combine some of those so that we can bid them as a package in order to get better pricing. So that's where we're at. We're still working on the civil engineering side. We have the two parking lots that they're still in the design phase there. So not a lot to report from last time.
Regarding Cabarrus County Schools, we have been doing some things to bid projects. Let me take you first to the financial budget sheet that looks like this, and just point out that one of the problems with doing this sort of document is that it's always 2 weeks sort of behind the times. We've demonstrated to you in this particular spreadsheet where a lot of the budget work is currently on projects, but what it doesn't reflect is sort of what you see in a subsequent timetable, or what we call the milestones report. We have bid projects since this financial statement was printed, and we're still in the process of encumbering monies, so that's why they're not reflected on this sheet. But just to point out that in addition to the work that you see here for the Colchin Webb projects and Central Cabarrus High School, we have also bid work at Concord High School, and also we've bid the chiller replacements at both Concord High School and Northwest Cabarrus High School. And those projects will be reflected financially on the budget sheet of the next go around. So that work is all moving forward. I was kidding Will earlier today in terms of we are seeing the budgets sort of going up, but I will say at this point, the way we've been working these projects, we have been able to see savings on one project when we typically we typically bid more than one project at a school. And we've been doing that for two reasons. One is it minimizes the amount of oversight. You're not watching numerous contractors working on the project. You tend to get a group of contractors working on 2 or 3 projects at the same time, which helps. It does control the cost, is what we've been seeing. So in the one case in Central Cabarrus High School was a good example. Our price for the windows was way below budget, whereas our price for the office security remodeling was higher than budgeted. So between the two, we ended up being within budget, which helped. Had we bid them separately, that would not have been the case. So, and you'll be seeing that probably in most of the work we do, and as Will just referred to it, he's taking advantage of that concept in bidding some of the HVAC work. And I think that's a good approach to take. The other aspect, the chillers, we bid first. Initially, we were hoping to bid all of this work in the early fall. It didn't work out that way. So we decided to bid the chillers so we could replace those this winter, which is important to do when it's cold and you don't need them. And then we'll replace the or excuse me, we'll bid the controls work and start that construction in late spring and finish it in the summer of next year, so that by the start of school year in August of 2012, we'll have the chillers and the air conditioning controls online for next fall semester at those two high schools. And we have, if I can now take you to the milestone sheet, which is that more colorful sheet that you have, that's the one. That shows a lot of movement on these projects, both in the area of design, bidding, and construction. And I think that we're very pleased, as I say, with the progress we're making at the moment. We hope that the good bidding climate continues to exist for us as we move forward on the rest of the projects.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Do. Looking back at the first sheet on page 381 of our agenda, for instance, like the Central Cabarrus High School, the windows and doors replacement, it was under budget by $130,000, and then the office renovations, it went up $130,000. So is that coincidental? That happens to be the same amount, or is it you just? How does that work?
Oh, no, it is coincidental. I mean, the numbers reflect the fact that we're actually moving $130,000, which is what we did need for the office remodeling. We're moving that exact amount from the windows project.
Okay.
They didn't bid it out that way.
Okay.
The numbers came in, the bid amounts came in different than that, but we
Okay.
just had an excess of funds to cover the $130,000 overrun on the office remodeling.
Okay. So potentially that will come under budget, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So are there, where you took money out from the replacement windows and doors, is there additional funds in excess still in that line item that you will be moving to a different school?
Potentially, there were two buildings, small buildings. There was the band building and the vocational shops building that we put on hold until we complete this work. If there's money, if those monies are still available at the end of the project, we will do those two parts of the work.
So you still have funds that you're going to reallocate either at that site or a different site?
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
I think that's what you were
Yeah.
getting at.
In the Concord High School, the vocational building remodeling was budgeted for $150,000 and it was only $16,000. Is it $150,000? Is that correct?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. What we did there, the 16.5 is administrative and design fees that were
Okay.
already expended on the project. So we've kept those in the project. The remainder of the money has been removed to pay for the auditorium overrun,
Okay.
overbid. And again, it's still hoped that we will have additional funds coming out of other projects that will bid there, that we can do some of the vocational building work. But at this point, we're going to put that particular project on
So
hold.
can you still use the same designs at that point? If it's a year down the road and you move money back in to do that work, or we have to go through the whole design process?
Now, for the most part, the only thing that will be required is if there were any code changes, we might have to update
Okay.
minor portions of the drawings.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Burridge, do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay. Put this back. Okay, the next item, if we'll go to new business. The first item on new business, Jonathan Marshall, I believe, for an amendment to the W.K. Dixon contract. And
That's
we
right.
also have Tim Louder is here with W.K. Dixon.
And Tim, if you want to come up here. Tim Louder with W.K. Dixon is here. This is the remainder of the engineering work that would be necessary to do the Raging Ridge Road. It always takes me a while with those Rs. Do the Raging Ridge Road extension and bridge. So it's the contract with W.K. Dixon for that purpose. We did have a meeting last week with Harrisburg. There are a few other questions to answer from that, but I believe we're getting very close to knowing finally what that design needs to be. So we are ready to move forward with this engineering contract. And again, Mr. Louder can answer any specific questions you may have about the contract, but it does look like we will be able to build just the 2-lane road for the extension, although at request of NCDOT, the 3 lanes, which is the turn lane there at Stallings Road, the 3 lanes will have to extend across the bridge. So that did make the bridge a little wider. The other change is that NCDOT has agreed to do the engineering for the bridge itself, so that's been, some portion of that was removed from this contract, although it still requires that coordination and some hydraulics and other things that are within this contract with W.K. Dixon.
And this is taking the portion of Raging Ridge Road, which is currently between Hickory Ridge Middle School, Hickory Ridge High School. It stops at the football field.
Mm-hmm.
So this will be, for the public, this will be extending that across the creek and tying into Stallings Road so that there will be 2 ways to exit the facilities.
That's right. So 2 ways in and out of those facilities. The other thing that's included in this contract and part of the discussion we had with the town of Harrisburg is a water line extension. Now, currently, there's a single water line feed to the schools, which is adequate, but does not allow that backup. We will need to extend the water line from where it currently ends, which is about where the 2-lane section of road ends, down to Stallings Road, which will allow the water system to be looped and have feeds from 2 different directions.
Absolutely.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
What's the total cost of this thing? Anybody know?
Yes, sir. The total estimated cost is $1.432 million.
That's 1,400 feet of road, right?
1,400 feet of road and a 70-foot
Bridge.
bridge. Yes, sir. The bridge is 500,000 of that.
Did they ever work out the sidewalks are gonna be on both sides or just one side?
It looks like we'll construct them on one side. The town of Harrisburg will construct the second side, though not with the initial project. It looks like they'll do that in the future. They have requested, as part of that, because what they want to do is use Powell bill funds to do that, and it needs to be in the town limits. So they've requested that the board consider annexation of those properties. There wouldn't really be any negative to that. Certainly we wouldn't pay taxes to the town of Harrisburg, so there's not a cost for that. And in fact, it would give us the in-town water and sewer rates. So they're looking at our past billing, and they're going to put together an estimate for you on what the savings would be with that. And I will need to bring that forward for your decision at a future time.
But the bridge change was because of the sidewalks on both sides. We only showed sidewalks on one side on the original estimate. We had to go back and widen the bridge in order to accommodate sidewalks. So we will have sidewalks built on the bridge portion of the project, both sides of the road, because you can't come back and add those later.
Has this information been shared with the school board yet, Cabarrus County Board of Education yet?
Len Whitkey and I have been working together on this project, but I don't know if after the last meeting, you had requested that I update them, and I provided all that update for them to pass along to the board. They have not seen this contract, I don't believe.
Okay. And I'm not certain that the contract itself is important, just as long as we keep them updated on, because once the buildings are paid for, then it goes back to the Board of Education. So, you know, that's obviously going to be a few years from now, but they do need to be kept aware. And I know that I've had questions from a couple school board members just on where we were with it. And I know they talked to NCDOT, and we were pretty much told it was in our lap at this point in time. So that's the reason. I just think that we need to make sure that the communication's there, so I appreciate that.
And I did follow up. I also spoke to Dr. Shepard about it right after that, and I copied him on the email where I provided that update.
If there's no other questions, I would entertain a motion to place this under new business.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next up is, thank you, Tim, for coming out. DSS Human Services Department Consolidation Plan. And we have Ben Rose, Mike Murphy, and Randy Bass all here. I don't know if you are all going to come up together or how you want to.
Definitely.
Good. Well, we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
And thank you again for giving us an opportunity to come give you a little bit of an update on the planning for the Human Services Consolidation. We've been really busy over the last 3 or 4 months working on this, and looking forward to co-locating in the near future and bringing our departments together. We have been really working hard to review and kind of prepare for both facility transition, as Mike and Randy's departments will be moving down to the Kannapolis office. We've been looking at some personnel functions. We've been developing some mission and vision statements. We have met with staff from all departments and gotten input and feedback about what we're doing and what our goals are. And it's been a really good process. We have already consolidated the administration as it is with Mike and Randy, and we've been doing very well with that. Teamwork has always definitely been a big proponent of what we do here, and that's really shown. I'm really grateful to Mike and Randy for coming to the table and helping us in these efforts to consolidate. We, of course, have been dealing with facility issues. That's been first and foremost. As you see, you have a consolidation plan in your packet that kind of gives us a little bit of a roadmap of where we're going over the next few months. And, of course, the facility's been the big thing. And we've been working closely with Kyle. Our goal has been with the facility to design the space that it will be very effective for our staff, but will require minimum upfitting and upgrades when we go to actually move in there. So we're trying to be very good stewards of the dollars there from that standpoint. We have looked at personnel functions within our departments. As you know, we serve a lot of the same clients, so we're looking to find some efficiencies there in terms of how we can best meet the needs of the clients and work together through that. One big goal that we've had in that is to centralize the supportive services functions such as finance and human resources. We're going to centralize that to one unit so that it will serve all divisions within the agency now. And that's going very well. We've actually consolidated one position at this point, or plan to consolidate one position at this point into that, and looking at starting that transition probably early next year as well. So we're excited about that. The plan lays out, like we said, a little bit of a roadmap of where we go over the next few months. 2 things that we've really identified that are very important is outreach and education of the public regarding this process. What we're planning to do next year is to hopefully have some community forums and get out some information via the web and other resources about what the purpose and mission of this agency will be, that a lot of things will not change in terms of the service delivery, but hopefully will be more efficient for the public and will be under one roof where everyone can access everything in one place. So we have a big goal for some community outreach and education and going to all the communities within our county to discuss those issues. One of the other big issues, of course, too, is how we start now, once we get together and we come together, how we actually deliver services. And what we want to do there is really utilize the staff and empower them to come together and help us deliver some service plan models in terms of when a client walks in through the door, what will it look like and how will they access all the services that we have. So we're going to utilize our staff for that and feel like we can really, they're our most valuable asset from that standpoint. So we're very excited about this. We're looking forward to moving forward with some innovative strategies on how we can do human services. I think it's it's a great opportunity for us to really become creative in what we do and how we deliver services, and still try to find ways to save money and be efficient in the same place without lowering that level of service. Very pleased again with all the process that we've been through over the last 3 or 4 months, but this is just a start. We realize we have that vision statement that has that 5-year vision, and we realize some things will take a while to get there, especially if we're reliant on other partners such as the state or federal government to help us get there. We are meeting next week with our IT department to start to talk about that. And one issue there that we want to look at is how can, each of us have different programs. Some are state-driven, some are federal-driven, some are local-driven. Where can we consolidate there? Perhaps get everyone paperless, because not everyone's paperless. So there's a lot of things still to go. But we're very excited about the process and look forward to keeping it moving, and are happy to entertain any questions you might have about our plan.
Commissioners, any questions?
And this might be a question for you, Mike. I know this plan encompasses expanding into what the Health Alliance, I guess, currently is in. When will they be moving into their new building, the Health Alliance?
We're currently programming the space. That's part of the reason why I've got those guys putting together their consolidation plan. We're programming the space now, working with Kyle and our architect, Bill Hughes. The proposed move-in will be probably around June of 2012. We're not quite sure. Right now, the anticipated move-out date for the health department is still February of 2012. So that'll give us a 3 to 4 month construction time. So hopefully by then we'll have all the construction documents ready to go and bid out. But it's going to be, as Ben was saying, they've worked very hard to maximize the space. So there is going to be the amount of space that's actually going to be revised or remodeled is being held to the minimal, just simply to save the money. There's going to be a lot of space left over that we can grow into in the future if we need to, which is going to be a lot of cubes. There's a lot of cube space left over there that they can just move in with very little upfit, maybe some paint or new carpet. But June of 2012 would be hopefully the move-in date.
So a lot of this physical consolidation will take place at the end of next year, is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
They've already, the locations will change in June of 2012, but they're already working very hard. In fact, Pam and I sat down with the three of them this afternoon and some more of Randy's staff and already talking about ways that they're looking to save money, but in the same time improving all three of the division's services as well. So it's really working out well.
Right. Well, I know I've worked with Ben. I'm on the Department of Social Services Board, and I've talked with Ben about this a lot, and he seems like he has it well organized and has a good plan. So I appreciate
Thank you.
his initiative so far, and it sounds like a great idea, I think. But I think one thing it is important is that people realize that the senior center itself will still be in full operation, and that will not be moving. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay. Make sure everyone
That
knows
is correct. Only for now, the administrative offices for Department of Aging will move. The senior center will still remain in its current location. Their staff that they're used to will still be there. All the programming will be still out of that spot. But this extra space up there may give us an opportunity to create an activity room or something along those lines in Kannapolis as well.
Yeah, I think the community outreach that you'll have, I guess various parts of the county will be a good opportunity to explain that, and hopefully a lot of people will really understand that. So.
Yes, it's our goal to go to each community and have some type of a public forum, or, where we can inform them of what the changes are, and what the changes are not in terms of that, like a senior center, and then do even more beyond that. That's just kind of like the first step.
Any other questions?
Do you know what kind of savings you're gonna have when you combine all this?
We're not at this point. We're still looking at the different programs and how we can consolidate, share resources both within the departments, but then also maybe consolidate some programs and reach some more individuals out in the public as well. We should be able to put some numbers to that fairly soon as they continue to go through their consolidation plan.
And one of the things, I'm not sure if it's related completely or not, but, with what's going on with Senate Bill 433, that would give counties flexibility, because I'm sure there's still some statutory things some walls there between functions. And we had a discussion about this morning in Raleigh, and you're looking at, it fell 3 votes short of the required votes to bring it up on the floor to vote on it. And it was just a question of timing. It wasn't a question of whether there was support or not. So it is thought that probably more likely that it will go through at some point between now and, I guess, January 2013. So.
Yeah, one of the things we're sort of looking more at this time, until that does go through, Ms. Kruth, is sort of the hybrid, more of a hybrid system where all of their independent boards and councils will stay in place. We're not doing anything to consolidate those, but we are just looking at consolidating the staff and the programming.
When does the lease on Branchview, where we have the vans parked, when does that?
I believe it expires in June of 2012.
Okay.
So that's our target date. That is another benefit to moving to this location. We're going to be able to build a secure parking lot for those vans that keep getting vandalized and the catalytic converters keep getting stolen on a regular basis. So we will be able to provide some secure parking up in that area as well.
And that should be a savings. That'll move there's attorneys in there also. They'll be moving up so that
They're moving to, that's right.
we would be getting, finishing that lease. And so that should be another savings that we'll be looking at.
Yes, ma'am.
That's true.
Any other questions?
Yeah. When, I know a lot of, all three of you have a lot of federal funds coming for different programs. Consolidating this into one, well, I guess one umbrella, it's not gonna affect the flow of the federal dollars for programs, or, I know
Right.
that's been discussed, but.
Yeah, that's correct, because they are, a lot of, all of our dollars, really, federal dollars are tied to specific services usually of what we can do. So it really won't consolidate that standpoint, but what we'll have is a centralized area that eventually, hopefully, will handle all the finances, where we have three separate areas now. We're going to have one that handles all the finances for every function that we do, even though they have separate claiming and reporting forms. We still hope to consolidate that into one centralized unit.
They'll flow through one funnel, but the services won't be changed.
Right. Yeah, this is not to drastically change services that are there now. They will continue to exist and be provided as they always have been. It's just looking at better and improving the ways that we do the services, hopefully will be the future goal.
Our hope is that the customer coming in will be a seamless process for them to go from one agency to the other. As we're all physically located in the same location, it'll be quite helpful to them.
Right. Great.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, I would entertain a motion to place this on the agenda. Or is this a report? Well, it says motion to approve.
You can approve their report, but it doesn't need to go to the regular meeting
Okay.
unless you.
Okay, that's
That
what
would
I
be
thought.
fine.
Okay, that's fine. It said a motion to approve, so I wasn't certain. We don't normally approve things at this meeting. Okay, that's fine. Next up is on page 61.
Thank you.
Thank you all. From Finance, budget revision to update estimated cost for the cruise meets project. Ms. Dubois.
I think I'm going to start. Mike, Kyle, and I have gotten together and reviewed the entire cruise meet project, and in your agenda, I don't know, it's past this page, there is a summary sheet that says cruise meet project, like an Excel spreadsheet. You can, maybe one or two sheet, keep going. That one, okay. Just to give you a summary, we sat down and evaluated each one of the line items within the individual project to list, starting with construction, listing the contract that we had approved for J.D. Goodrum, looking through any potential change orders that the project might need. As far as this project is concerned, it's not your typical brick and mortar facility. It is a lot more complex than that, and I will leave that up to Kyle to explain more of those. But in the original contract, there was no contingency money that was placed in that, and we've gone through an evaluation through the agreements that were written on what responsibilities were the counties and what responsibilities were underneath the contract, and there are some change orders that we need to have funded. So that is listed on the summary format here. The architect, the contract is intact on that. The engineering, there were several different types of engineering work that needed to take place, and once again, I'll let Kyle explain the details along that lines, but with all the wastewater and water systems and the harvesting of animals, trying to find the appropriate term, and the remnants that come from that, there are special things that have to be taken into consideration as far as disposing of those materials. Leave it at that. The site development was completed. It was 33 cents over budget. I think we're sufficient there. But one of the big things when was brought before you for the $385,000 contribution from the county was that only covered the wastewater construction. The well water, which is the water coming into the facility, was not included in that, and having consulted with Rich Cook, based on the contract that was written with Cruise Meats, there is the flexibility of adding that $75,000 to the $385,000 to be reimbursed back to the county. Is that correct, Mr. Cook?
That is correct.
Okay, so that should be sufficient to take care of those monies that we were having transferred from the general fund to cover that cost. The other thing was in the contract that was originally written for cruise meets, there was an anticipated $20,000 contribution, but through the actual agreement that was written, the cruise meets, as part of their agreement, was going to cover equipment that would be placed in the facilities. So the $20,000 contribution was no longer going to be collected by the county, and that needed to be taken out of the budget. So all inclusive, it was a $205,293.06 change to the budget. $75,000 would come from the general fund, which is the same place the 385 came from, and it would be utilized within the contract to be reimbursed back once the facility was opened. And $130,293.06 would come from the farm budget, which is the associated budget with the cruise meets project. They had some excess funds at this point in time and nothing specific designated for those uses. And in order to continue this project, it was necessary to provide those funds for us to continue forward. So that is a summary of the budget request, and I will let Kyle talk some more of the specifics of the needs for the additional funds.
The change orders basically revolve around a lot of the things that were on the prints that say provided by owner, gates, hoists, blood tanks, things like that that go along with the actual process. And like Mr. Bois said, nothing was built in for contingency into that contract. So those are costs that we have to assume to be able to provide the actual operation for them to be able to provide a HACCP plan that meets their USDA inspectors' requirements and things like that in terms of, you know, physical, chemical, and biological hazard mitigation, things like that, that just have to be provided for the actual operation of that facility. We also saw a cost in increasing the actual electrical requirements out there, and that's based around the fact that you basically have three components of the operation out there, if you will. You have the harvest facility itself, you have a waste treatment package facility, and then you have a water supply, which is just a well house, but for lack of a better way of explaining it, a water supply facility. And you have to provide electricity to all of those. So by doing that, we had to come off the primary panel and increase the size of that to be able to run out to those different locations to be able to provide that. That's where a bulk of the actual change orders came in terms of the construction of the harvest facility at this point. Other small ones have come up that you would see in any type of building that you would make, that you would build, even if it wasn't a slaughter facility. And some of that was some of the materials that were spec'd by the architect weren't exactly what, when you get into that type of operation with water spraying and contrasting temperatures, ranging from extremely hot when you open the doors to closing the doors and it being extremely cold in there. That takes a beating on a facility, both the materials, the floor, the equipment, and everything. So there's had to be some changes we've made to some of the materials used there to be able to handle that, so that their facility didn't, I guess, see operational problems in the first few months.
Some of this funds, or this amount of money will be recovered, is that correct? In fees that they will charge to help recover that?
The additional $75,000 would be added to the $385,000 and would be recovered through the per package fee.
Yeah, through a surcharge. We've not spoken with the cruises at this time. However, the contract does allow us some flexibility there, so we'll, Mr. Cook and I will be talking with the cruises to inform of that.
Questions, commissioners?
What is the payback on this process? If we're gonna add a surcharge on to what they do out there, what's the estimated payback to the county for these funds?
The estimated time that they will be paid
Yeah.
back? I think until the business gets up and running, we don't know. It depends on the amount of business that they have. We speculate that the first year is going to be pretty slow as they build up clientele, and then hopefully from years after that it'll start picking up. But there was no, at the time that the feasibility study was done, there was no set schedule as to when it would be paid back.
But these items, it wasn't known that these items were needed before this thing originally started?
The items were on the plans. Some of them were marked at owner's cost and were not specific items, but we knew that they were going to come about. Yes, sir, they were known about.
I mean, it started out with a grant, right? If I remember right, it started out with a grant for a certain amount of money.
The base of the original funding was from a grant, yes, sir.
And then we
the
come back with-
remainder was picked up through the county.
Then we came back with another fund for the water system.
Well, we came back for additional money to finish the building, and then, yes, sir, there was $385,000 to put in there for the waste treatment plant and system.
That wasn't known before this started, that $385,000 the water system was needed?
Yes, sir, it was.
And now they need what, $185,000 more?
Is that
The grand total was 205.
the water system itself is going to be $75,000, the water supply.
I mean, where's the where's the 200-something thousand dollars, where's it going?
That's a-
Primarily to the construction line item, the well water supply, and additional engineering cost.
And now, tonight, or the motion that we're gonna place on the agenda is for $82,772, is that right? That's what's on
That is the
agenda?
budget revision, because $75,000 of it came from the general fund transfer over. We increased the revenues in the farm fund by $30,000, decreased the revenue in the cruise meets project by $20,000, and the net comes out to 82, but the true additional cost to the project is 205.
Okay, but
So we
what?
wanted to make sure that you understood the additional cost was 205, but the budget revision's only 85.
But that's all county funds.
Yes, sir.
But the 75,000 is going to be tacked onto what we will receive back from the per package cost.
75 of that, yes, sir.
Of the
That's the
82,000.
intent. Again, Mr. Cook and I have to meet with the cruises
So
and
add the
get
82,000.
get their agreement on that.
The 75 will be added to the 385.
Okay. Has any construction started on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Kyle can give you an update on there. It is under roof, and they are already building.
Are you
work
talking
on
about the
it.
waste treatment system or the slaughter facility?
Either one?
Yeah, slaughter facility is well along. They're putting the unitherm panels in, which would be kind of your insulated metal panels that you would see in a manufacturing plant. Those are up on all walls and starting on the ceiling right now.
And what happens if there's not an agreement reached for the per packaged surcharge? I assume there will be, but what if, I mean, those negotiations going to be?
Oh, then it would just come straight from the general fund, as Pam has got it, the budget amendment designed at this time.
Well, I mean, they will not have to charge a per package fee. That's in the contract for them to have to.
The contract, yeah, it was listed at approximately or an estimated $385,000
Right.
for the wastewater, and I believe it actually stipulated the water treatment as well, or the water supply system. So at the time, it was an estimated that both of those were going to cost $385,000. It came back where the wastewater treatment facility itself is $385,000, and then the additional $75,000 was
Right.
for the water supply.
I understand that, but I'm discussing the negotiations between the county and the cruise meets facility about negotiating a price per package that the surcharge is going to be to recoup that money.
That's correct. Yes, we will go back and discuss that with them. There is flexibility, from our understanding of the contract, there is flexibility, but there will have to be an agreement with Mr. Cruz.
Right, okay.
The contract requires that there be a surcharge. It's
Okay.
not, and it's to be
So it's-
determined collaboratively between the Cruz family and the county, but the contract does require that there be a surcharge so these monies can be recouped.
Okay.
At the time the agreement was drawn up, it was $385,000, and that's what they understand now.
Right.
We'll just have to sit down and talk with them concerning the additional $75,000.
Right, I understand that.
Yes, sir.
I guess the only question I've got, and this in some ways could be an absurd question, but if, looking at the extra money that we're putting up, the county's putting up, if we decided not to do it at all, what would it cost to return things back to where it was and just go back to ground zero?
To not
Just
complete
project
the
at all,
facility
just-
and close it down right now?
Yeah, tear everything down we're doing right now, what would it cost us?
At a minimum, well, all of the money that we've expended up to date, and at a minimum, we would have to refund the state for the original grant of about 600 and,
We've gotten about 160,000 of the state grant money. Last update, I believe, that's about all we've received so far.
okay, so,
Okay.
Well, you can't have it without water coming in. I think it
Right,
was an
that's what I'm saying, we're
oversight.
kind of at a place where
It was-
we're,
It looks
It
to
was
me
on
like-
the plans. It wasn't, it was known, but it wasn't completely caught,
I mean,
if that
you
makes
couldn't-
sense.
You couldn't
I mean-
operate the facility without the water system.
Right.
Right.
And I think it was an oversight, and it's something that we need to
That's a
take
pretty-
care of, because they can't operate it without it. It
That's a-
would have been
That's a pretty big
much
oversight.
preferable
We got
if
the main part of the building.
all of that had been done previously
how-
when this came to us originally.
How are they slaughtering animals out there now?
They're not.
they are
Oh,
not.
they quit?
No, they never
They've
have.
never.
Oh, they never did? I thought they used to.
No, to process the livestock, they're sending them off, the farmers have to send them to other locations to have, and then they're brought back into.
Years ago they
Cruises.
did though, didn't they? Or did they?
I'm not familiar with that. I know
Okay.
they bring them in quarters now, and then they custom, for the customer, they'll cut them up into the certain pieces.
I know Cook used to down here on Manor Avenue years ago.
Now, why the $20,000 contribution from Cruise Meats? Why did they decide not to?
Originally, that was going to be their contribution, was the 20,000. However, in this maintenance and operational agreement, it was the agreement was changed that they would actually purchase all of the equipment for the interior of the facility, where the county was going to purchase that equipment instead of them, and that's going to be much more than the $20,000.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, it's out on Rama Road. It's a great facility. I think the farmers right now are going to somewhere above Greensboro or North Wilkesboro, where they have to drive to do for the kill floor. And then they bring it back and hang it and age it and cut it to order. They have a nice retail store out there that I like to go to. So I would encourage any of the commissioners to drive out there and look at it. The Cruz family is always very nice whenever I'm out there. I usually go on Saturday, so they're very nice. I'm sure they can show you around, probably not in the construction part. Kyle might be able to meet you out there if you want to go and see, what's happening out there. But I think it's going to take a little bit at first, like you said, for the farmers to realize what they're paying in fuel to drive all the way to North Wilkesboro. The rate might be, I don't know what their fee's going to be, but that's what they have to figure out is what's the market rate that they can charge the farmers, and are the farmers going to realize that the time that they're saving, because you have to drive up, then you have to drive it back, and there's a lot of time and effort that the farmers are putting into it, and that was the idea of originally of helping the local community and helping the local farmers to be able to get their product to market at a lower cost and quicker. So we do have on here a budget revision. I would suggest that it go on the consent agenda unless anyone has a different suggestion. Is there a motion to place this on the agenda?
I place it on the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item we have is the Youth Council, which you said is going to present in 2 weeks.
That's correct.
Okay. We have a number of appointments to the board, which we need to add to the agenda. And if you'll notice, number 5, there are some annual appointments, and we can make those in 2 weeks also. We don't have to make those tonight, okay? For us, I will comment now, and we'll do it in 2 weeks. For the Food Policy Council, I forgot about that. For the Food Policy Council, I will recuse myself on that particular vote when you look at the list of names that are being recommended. My daughter is being recommended to get a position on that, so I will recuse myself in 2 weeks on that. And, oh, that's right. Kyle, you want to come back? Sorry, I forgot to write this one down. Under new business, we did have another item to add, which is an update on the 7th floor across the street, and Kyle's here to talk about that.
If you could just bring that out, I have a, sorry. basically the whole idea of this is bringing in front of you what the scope of the actual 7th floor upfit at the sheriff's admin is. We've met with all the parties that had planned from Rowan Cabarrus Community College and from our own sheriff's department and EMS. We've met with them now 4 or 5 times, collected all their space requirements, technology requirements, lighting requirements, furniture requirements, everything, and kind of have laid out a program of what needs to happen up there. Can you go one more page? And basically what we've married together, as you know, the basic law enforcement training curriculum of Rowan Cabarrus Community College, and also provided space for our EMS Training Skills Lab, which would stay set up permanently. Currently, the EMS Skills Training Lab is housed in the Transportation Building on Branchview. It's actually set up and broken down every time they need to do training, and that would be the training where they actually have the mannequins, fake blood, different types of equipment and things like that. So this would be able to stay up permanently, and also with us moving transportation into the Human Services Building, we would no longer have that transportation building on Branchview anyways. So we are able to go ahead and put that up there while also providing everything that the Rowan Cabarrus basic law enforcement training needs to run their entire program out of that 7th floor, except physical training. That will be the only thing they will not be able to do there. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear about what they will be doing and what they won't. When I say physical training, that doesn't mean that they won't be doing all their secure arrest training techniques, SCAT, things like that. All of that will be done there. What they won't be able to do is literally their physical training test, where they go run 4 miles and have to come back because the state requires them to have basically a place to shower and everything like that. And based on the space, all we can do is provide them a locker room. We can't provide them a whole shower facility. So they will be able to do everything here, and then based on our discussions with them is whether it be once a quarter or once a term when they have to do the physical training, they will continue to do it at the facilities that they have already, which we toured those facilities and they have plenty of space for it. So they will be given a SCAT room here, which basically looks like an aerobics room, where they would do all of their kind of grappling techniques, secure arrest, things like that. And then they will have several classrooms up here in this corner, where I am with the pointer, that will basically be where their actual classroom is, smart boards, everything like that. And then they will also, our sheriff's department will have some firearms training simulators in there. Currently, we utilize this in one of our training rooms on the 6th floor. It's basically a big movie screen and literally sounds like it does. You walk in and hide behind some barricades and pretend to shoot at it, and shoots a little ping pong ball at you, something like that. We're going to be able to provide that right here, and that'll also be for the students and our in-service Cabarrus County deputies. This space right here will be a large multi-purpose room, and I don't have it shown, but I'm trying to show you a line right there. That will be a partition wall. And we'll be able to split that and use it as 2 classrooms, or use it for a space large enough to have in-service training or in-service meetings with the sheriff's department. Currently, they do not have a space where he can fit his entire staff over there. So that's what that will provide. Can you scroll down one more, a little bit for me? Thank you. This is currently a mechanical room. It will remain obviously a mechanical room. The bulk of the air handlers for that building are on that 7th floor, so we'll come back and double insulate that wall just for acoustics. And we were able, the way that we planned it, we were able to keep one half of the spine of the building completely secure, which means if you're familiar with walking in that building, you could be up on that 7th floor and walk down this stairwell, and you could literally get into the detectives area, narc area, everything like that. So by doing the way we have with doors and card readers, we're able to keep any students from wandering into what I would call the secure spine of the building. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I did notice, the driving simulator, does Rowan have that now, or is
No.
that something new that's being added as well?
No, they do not. We are putting the space in there, and I'm putting the electrical requirements
Oh, okay.
for it
So
and the
they-
ability to get it in. And when somebody tells me they want to buy it, we'll put it in there. We've looked at what they want and what they consider. I guess everybody has different types of vendors or manufacturers of those simulator. and both the sheriff's department and Rowan Cabarrus agree with what one they would purchase if they do.
Now, with this facility, it's going to be Rowan Cabarrus, obviously, that uses it, but will it be available for other agencies to use if it's?
I can answer that. Yeah, it's, the classroom space itself is going to be pretty much booked up in the top corners up there. Those 3 classrooms, that's going to be their BLET classes and the Department of Corrections or their jail schools.
Okay.
They pretty much book those nonstop throughout the year. The other larger space is on the lower end. That is flex space. As Kyle said, it can be divided into 2 classrooms or 1 large classroom, and it can hold 100.
Actually, with the furniture layout in it, the numbers we came up with were 120 with complete furniture layout. But based on the space and what building code is, if you just wanted to go chairs or just people and have some sort of meeting or ceremony or greeting, you could be up to 250 and even above.
Yeah, and that'll be space that our other departments can use as well for large if they want to host a conference or whatever as well. So it's going to be, it'll be a good space. It'll look very similar if you're familiar with the top floor of the Concord Police Department right now, where they've got the top floor, they've got the walls painted, the columns, everything's in place, carpets up, all the utilities are there. They just haven't built any walls.
Right.
Well, that's what that space will look like.
Okay.
Any other questions? What's the timeline on
Well,
this?
right now, I just wanted to have you all see it, and as long as there weren't no major complaints, we're moving forward with the actual design specs. Our goal is to get Rowan Cabarrus in when they begin classes, which is August 1st. And we've got to get it built, and we've got to get furniture in it. So there's going to be a lot to go into that. Obviously, being construction on a 7th floor of a building that's already created and has a 911 center right underneath a bulk of that, and the sheriff's suite under the other bulk of it, is going to prove challenging in terms of how we juggle the actual construction.
Okay, any other questions? So this was just to receive a report, so we don't need to place
correct.
this on the agenda. Okay. Good on that, okay. And then, under reports, the Arts Council will be presenting in 2 weeks, and along with the 3 and 4, I think the rest of those will be in 2 weeks, but tonight I would like to welcome Shannon Johnson and Michael Schumann, who's been doing a lot of work on our locally sustainable economy, and we're going to receive your report. And you'll have to tell me as you go along if there's a certain page that I need to have on the projector, okay?
Well, I am going to pretty much turn it over to Michael because I did the summary report at our last meeting. And so we'll let him give a small presentation, and then I'm sure you'll have questions.
Great. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to share at least the preliminary findings of research that I've undertaken. And just to summarize a little bit, I was hired by you folks back in the beginning of the year to help frame a stronger consensus around the direction for economic development for the county, with a particular goal of trying to give more emphasis to locally owned small businesses within the county. And I was commissioned to write up an analysis of leakages within the county, that is, places where people were spending money on goods and services from outside the county that represented new potential areas of economic growth, looking at potential, what I call meta businesses, kinds of economic development approaches that cost little or no money, that might give you an opportunity to seize those economic opportunities, and then to analyze what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of the business community and what they really need in order to grow, both mainstream local businesses and home-based businesses. So what you have in front of you is a draft report. It's the first of 3 parts that I'm going to be delivering It's probably going to be the longest of the parts. And I think what I would like to do is maybe just take about 3 or 4 minutes to summarize the key findings, and then we can sort of open it up for questions and some discussion. Because one of the things that I'm looking for is guidance about additional things we might do in finishing up this study. I think the first point to make is that you've got a big problem, and that problem is joblessness. 9.7% is worse than the national average. In absolute numbers, it's 8,000 people unemployed in the county. Something needs to be done differently. The main strategy that has been embraced over the last decade has been corporate attraction. Corporate attraction has led to about 340 jobs a year coming to the county, based on the best evidence that's presented on this approach. And that simply will not get you the 8,000 jobs that you need. And a new approach is necessary in order to supplement that approach. What we know from national data is that local small businesses are the most important source of job growth everywhere in the country. We have data that has been crunched by the Kaufman Foundation of Entrepreneurship based in Kansas City, which has shown really that the only source of job growth in our economy in recent years has been local small businesses. We have 2 other studies, one from Harvard, one from Penn State, both peer-reviewed last year, published, that show that the rate of income growth per capita in any given part of the United States and the rate of job growth per capita in any part of the United States is directly related to the presence of local small businesses. So these are very powerful pieces of evidence that this is an important, at least a method and approach to economic development that deserves equal attention to the traditional approaches. There's a lot of mythology about local businesses, and I think the mythology can kind of be summarized as 4 kinds of points that you hear a lot about. One is that all local businesses are small and therefore they're not that relevant. They're sort of the backwater of an old economy, not relevant to the new economy. They're not that competitive, and there's not that much demand in the local economy that can really enable local businesses to take off. And just briefly about each of those points. The first is you have great evidence in Cabarrus County that local does not necessarily need to be small. I think S&D Coffee is a brilliant example of a successful local business, locally owned business that has grown to be quite large. In terms of being the backwater of your economy, I've calculated that something like 83% of your jobs in this county are in locally owned businesses. So the vast majority of your county right now is the locally owned economy. And it makes sense from my standpoint that the vast majority of one's economic development attention would then focus on the vast majority of businesses that exist in your county. In terms of competitiveness, we know that nationally the market share of GDP occupied by small and home-based businesses has actually steadily grown since 1980. Which suggests their growing competitiveness. And in terms of the potential in local demand for sustaining the growth of local businesses, that's really what most of these 39 pages is all about. I go through 2 methodologies, both of which I've developed in order to calculate what kind of local demand exists for potentially growing local businesses. And what I think is the better of the 2 methodologies, relying on an input-output model called IMPLAN from Minnesota, which is used by most economic development departments in the country, we can conclude that a 25% shift of people's purchasing habits toward more local goods and services away from non-local goods and services could create 9,300 new jobs, more than enough to solve the unemployment problem in this county. Those 9,300 jobs represent about $400 million of new wages, $61 million of new tax revenues coming to the state, county, and local government. So these are not inconsequential numbers. The one chart that I wanted you to look at, if we could pull that up, Liz, is on page 26, and it's chart 13. And what this chart does is it sort of summarizes what the best estimate of current jobs are in the economy. And I apologize for the smallness of the projection here. You'll all be squinting, as will I, with our adult eyes. But it has the current jobs that add up to about 87,700, and these are the jobs as of 2009, which is the most recent data that are available, at least in this framework, which includes self-employees and some other things that you can't get from more instantaneously available databases. And then it shows what a 25% shift would generate in new jobs. And I just want to point out that it's interesting that the largest categories of potential job growth are in professional services and in a category that economists call FIRE, finance, insurance, and real estate. And you put those together and it's about 3,500 jobs that are possible in just those two categories. What I think is interesting about those categories is that the infrastructure required to support professional services and financial services is really quite limited. So one does not need a gigantic investment to support these kinds of professionals. The other thing about them is that they are high-wage jobs. So we tend to think of services as lower wage jobs, Walmart jobs, but in fact, these are precisely the kinds of service jobs that can bring a lot of new money into the county and are consistent with efforts to grow the residential base of the county, as is happening in a bunch of parts around the county. Two other, I think, very significant sources of job growth are local food, which you're focusing on with your food committee, and tourism. Those two together are about 2,000 additional jobs. And then in things that you have been focusing on, paying a lot of attention to, manufacturing and sort of intermediate industries that link to manufacturing, like wholesaling or transportation, those are another 2,000 jobs or so. So I think that, with this kind of analysis, you have an agenda that is not far-fetched. It represents things that are not difficult to do or things that you are already doing. The last part of the paper, I lay out 19, again, what I call meta businesses, basically economic development strategies that have a shot not just at breaking even, but actually making money. And I think in these lean economic times when we're all trying to figure out how to tighten our belts, these are precisely the kinds of strategies that one might be interested in. I'll give you just one example. Back in the 1980s, the state of Oregon had something called the marketplace, where they tried to systematically link local businesses to one another and then took finder's fees from the new contract recipient with each new deal that was made, and thereby paid the overall administrative cost of running the marketplace. It was a very smart construct, and it shut down in the mid-90s. It's something that could be constructed again, and I think if you have an opportunity to look at those other 18, you'll find some interesting stuff there. As I said at the outset, this is all part of a longer research endeavor. The next parts of my work are going to focus on looking at what are the obstacles to growing new local businesses and making some other specific recommendations about how to grow them, strategies that could be used by the Sustainable Local Economy Council, or it could be used by the EDC or the Chamber of Commerce. You have a lot of resources that are already deployed to economic development. It's just a question of getting them to focus on the things that are most effective at producing jobs. Let me stop there and open it up to questions and comments.
I have not studied this in detail. I will say that. I've looked at parts of it, but I haven't been able to sit down with every bit of it. I think it was last week sometime, there was a segment, I guess, on, I think it was, I'm not real certain which show, and it said that for Christmas, that Americans should purchase, if we purchased at least one item worth, I forgot what it was, $60, that was made in the United States, how many jobs that it would generate in the United States, and that we need to start looking for items that are manufactured in the United States. And it went on to say that China is very happy that we buy all the things that we buy in our very materialistic society, especially if it's manufactured in China. They're glad that we celebrate Christmas and that we exchange so many gifts. It seems like that's kind of what this is. Not only should we be looking at United States goods, but we need to be looking at Cabarrus County items that, especially with small businesses, we have a number of small business people with us. So, you know, we need to be looking at everybody, trying to identify small businesses that are locally owned so that, and try to shift our purchases in that direction in order to stimulate not just the United States economy, but to stimulate our local economy. I know we were looking for Christmas presents and decided not to purchase them elsewhere because we knew there was another store, a store right here in downtown Concord, that we could get the same item. And my husband said, I'd much rather make a purchase with somebody locally than, you know, at, this happened to be a big Christmas show that will be not named at this point. But you have the idea that we need to look at the people around here. Commissioner Meismer has a local business. Commissioner Burridge has a local business. And that's really what we need to be promoting, which is what your group is working on promoting. Comments?
Yeah, just a question I've had is that, and I guess kind of back up a step and kind of, you look at where we're at, where we're located geographically. And then I'm thinking of the town I grew up in Georgia, which the only difference, it's almost identical demographically to Cabarrus County, but it's 50 miles outside of Atlanta, where we're only 15 miles outside of Charlotte. What effect do you see that communities like ours where there is going to be, is there going to be more leakage, or is it, because there's temptation, there's always been this question in our community over the last 10 years, are we going to just become a bedroom community of Charlotte, or are we going to chart our own independent economic course? And, a lot of this is going to be saying we're going to chart our own independent economic course, but how come can we, but short of building a moat at the county line, how do we keep the, how do we do that without, that, because there's a lot of people that work in Charlotte, and they basically do nothing but sleep in Cabarrus County, and they shop in Charlotte, they, and then vice versa. I understand this weekend with the ACC championship, although it was happening in Charlotte, I understand it Saturday afternoon talking to my son that, Concord Mills Mall was covered up with Clemson and Virginia Tech fans that were here for the game. So,
Yeah. Well, this is an area where perfection can be the enemy of the good here.
Yeah.
and I think that what one needs to think about is not how you get a perfectly self-reliant economy. It's how, through modest measures, you can shift consumer purchases of goods and services over time. And the good news is that information matters. The more consumers learn about the presence of quality local goods and services, the more they tend to buy local. If it were true that local goods and services were more expensive and shoddy and bad value, information wouldn't be helpful. Information would turn people away from local. But it does seem to be useful. And I think that the other piece of good news is that 2/3 of what families spend their money on is in services. So services are the easiest things to localize. And not just, people mowing their lawns, but professional services like lawyers and accountants, tax preparers, doctors, financial services. So I think that focusing on the services economy rather than the goods economy may well be the most cost-effective, the smartest way of seeing the biggest difference in your economy more quickly. And it's a little bit different. A lot of buy local focuses on goods. And those are the trickiest things in a way to localize, because, there's perfect substitutes at a mall just down the street, or most of those goods are coming from China anyway. So I would just say, thinking about the service economy, here's another thing about the service economy. Even if you buy from a local pharmacy, from Moose's Pharmacy, which I have their T-shirt, love the pharmacy there, because of the many of the goods that Moose sells, 3/4 of your money is going to leave the county. If I buy, and I notice that Steve Morris is here, so suppose if our Christmas gift is buying tickets to Steve Morris's theater, most of that money will stick around here because it's mostly a service operation. I mean, he has to bring in popcorn and has to rent the film, but it is mostly service payments. So I would almost argue that focusing these Christmas gifts on purchasing of services from service providers here could be the most dramatic stimulus you could get. And that's how I would focus the work in the next few years for import substitution, is on the service economy.
In your report, it says 83% of the jobs within Cabarrus County are provided by local businesses. How does that compare with other counties, maybe within the state or nationally, or just to give me some sort of idea?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the data, that calculation has to be made with statewide data. So there is a website called youreconomy.org, which was launched by a foundation based in Michigan, and it's taken national data from Dun & Bradstreet and organized it in terms of the ownership of every business in the country relative to a headquarters location. So if the headquarters is in state, it's considered a local business. And based on that, they then have data on the overall rate or distribution of jobs in every sector in North Carolina. So I just applied those percentages to the actual jobs that you had to give you a sense. But I would say you're probably at about the state average. There's nothing that strikes me as being radically different. The one thing I would point out, and this is a weakness of the economy too, that you are below the national average in manufacturing. Manufacturing plants often are more likely to be non-locally owned. And so that would be an area where we have an indication of some weakness that you might want to try to fix. But I think the home run, of course, is locally owned new manufacturers.
Okay. And at the beginning, there's discussion about the EDC's recruitment of jobs, and it says there's 2,700 some odd jobs created in the past 7 years. Where did that statistic come from?
They have a very nice chart, and I should drop a footnote to it, where they summarize all of the recruitments that have been done, I believe, between 2004 and 2011, and the number of jobs associated with each of them.
Okay. All right. And then also, I think probably most of us have all taken a more conscious effort to buy locally in the past years, and I certainly think that's a popular endeavor, and of course, certainly being a small business owner myself, I think that's important. But it sounds good that we can try to purchase everything local and really take steps to do that. However, what type of initiatives will really connect to that? I mean, I think we all agree that that's a good idea and what we should do, but is there I know you touch on it some, but like what is truly the biggest step to going into an initiative of that?
Right, well, so I have a bias to this question right now. So I've just spent, you know, when I'm not working on studies like this one, I've been working on a new book on local investment. And I really feel that capital is the biggest obstacle. And figuring out, not just with banking, but with our pension funds and with other kinds of investments, how we can get more capital into local businesses more effectively. That I think is critical. The other thing that I think is a high priority is entrepreneurship support. I've been very impressed with the Small Business Development Center at Rowan Cabarrus Community College. And I want to learn more about what they're doing and think about ways of improving it.
So what will be, you said this is going to be the first of 3 reports?
Yeah, so the next installment, in September, I had 15 conversations with probably 30 different folks, going through a sort of SWOT questionnaire with them. And so I'm going to put that all together in a discussion. And I think it gives an interesting snapshot of you know, how the people living here, particularly the business people, really view the strengths and weaknesses of the county from a business standpoint. And then the last piece is trying to turn the microscope on home-based businesses. That, frankly, that is another piece of your economy that I think is quite remarkable. I mean, you have almost 10,000 home-based business entrepreneurs. And that, relative to your workforce, is quite high. It's a natural response to the high level of unemployment that people are not going to starve and they're going to try to figure out a way out of the mess. But I think we need to learn a lot more about who they are, what their needs are, and how to support them. So that's the last part of the analysis. Let me just say, finally, I know the time has expired, that my email address is on here, my phone number is on here. If you find yourselves reading this paper at 3 in the morning and have comments, please call me. I will take your call, eager to get your feedback, and we have time to make this as good a study as possible. Thank you.
Do you need anything else from us? Or do you feel like you're good to go?
I think I have a bunch of very specific questions that I'm going to target at specific pieces of government, so, and many of whom I've already met, so I think I'm in good shape. Thanks to
That's
Shannon.
great. Yeah, I will say I think Shannon's doing an excellent job with the Committee for a Sustainable Local Economy. And I know that group's working real hard
They are
to
doing,
get their focus, as you
they
reported
really
last
are.
month.
They're working very hard. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Honeycutt, is there anything else that we need to approve for the agenda for next month? Did we get everything? Okay. And I didn't have a chance to ask you, would you like to make a comment about our new roundtable participants and another young lady sitting behind us?
I've inform the board of some decisions I'd made internally, and then it's also already made the papers, but I would like to publicly welcome Jonathan Marshall as the new Deputy County Manager. He has been with us for 23 years, and as I've stated in my descriptions to you guys earlier, that he's been with us in many capacities, from a planner to department head to special project coordinator. He's got thorough knowledge of planning, construction, economic development, transportation. So he's touched over the last 23 years a lot of areas. He's well respected both within the county employees as well as the county. So we're pretty excited that he's agreed to move into that position and join Pam and I on the executive leadership team. And as a result of Jonathan moving up, we were also able to promote from within Ms. Kelly Sifford, who you know from presenting to you in multiple meetings in the past for community development projects. But if you didn't know, prior to that, Kelly has been a planner for us and for the city of Concord. And she's also been, had some experience now with us in several different projects as well as the project manager, anywhere from the old Bethel School projects to the jail, actually, which is she was a very, very big help during the planning stage, and then also for Kyle and I during the construction stage as well. She coordinated a lot of the different meetings that were in place, and she also ran down a lot of trails trying to find some information to bring back to us so that we can make a good decision on how to move forward on some projects. So we're excited that Kelly is there. We have made a change in the name of the department now. It is no longer Commerce, and we went back to the roots. And also to what the services that we're actually providing in that department, and that is planning and development services. And planning and development services, development meaning not only community development, but also internally economic development, and also working with Mr. Cox and his staff as well, from a liaison from county staff to them as we move forward. So we're excited that both of them have agreed to move up, and we're also excited to be able to promote from within. Thank you.
And we're glad to have you both. You've been with us already, but it's nice to have you in your new positions. Commissioners, are there any comments that you want to make? General Nason?
Just one, and I want to say this. I haven't really thought through every way how to say this without becoming a landmine or whatever, but I guess I'll go ahead and say it. My thought is, and it's been something I've been thinking about the last few weeks, and something I think that maybe is a retreat agenda item for us in January, is that Charlotte is hosting the Democrat National Convention in July. And I know it happens in both political parties, not just the Democrats, but sometimes those conventions can get a little raucous. And, we're so close, for us to think it's just going to stay in Charlotte and all of this festivity associated with that. Is there something, and I don't know if some research is done, maybe it's something that Brad would need to get involved with as well, is other counties around the country that have hosted political conventions. Is there anything we might need to do as far as beefing up any of our local ordinances or anything like that we need to go ahead and start looking at in preparation for that?
The sheriff and I, we talked a little bit about that. In fact, he and Chief Hunt and some others have been active with the organizing committee, sort of getting updates or briefings on what has happened in the past and what to expect here. And some of the activities, of course, our commission visits, they're actually listening.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know that. So.
So that's a good thing. But we can, I can have the sheriff come in if he wants to talk. I mean, he probably cannot talk about everything because some of it is supposed to be confidential, but he can at least give you an update about what they're expecting as far as activities.
But my concern is that, don't get me wrong, I'm saying welcome to Cabarrus County, but what I just want to make sure of is if there's stuff that we can prevent through and we have to do any ordinance changes or whatever that we can prevent or help us as far as public safety is concerned during that period. Because as you know, in history, things have gotten a little out of hand sometimes at political conventions. So,
I can, if you would like, I can speak with the sheriff and have him come back and.
I thought maybe the retreat might be a good time to do it at our retreat in January.
At the retreat?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It may be a good time.
I'm just wondering, time-wise, how we can fit it into that schedule.
I don't know. Before you got a schedule.
A lot of discussion on
or we could do
budgets
it.
and
Okay,
and
we
that
could do
kind
it.
of
We
stuff,
could do it at the January work session. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, something like that.
To see what his schedule's like
sure.
and see when it's going to be most appropriate for him, January, February.
Okay.
Seems to me like that would be good.
Great.
Any committees, reports that anybody wants to make tonight? Okay. We don't have a need for a closed session tonight, do we? No. Okay. If there's no other business, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Good night.